Last May, my partner and I went to New York City for 11 unforgettable days. It quickly became one of our all-time favorite trips, so much so that we actually considered moving there. And honestly, we still think about it, but for now, London remains home. I think what made this trip even more special was that first, it was our first big adventure after the pandemic, and it has been a trip that we've been dreaming about for a really long time. We ended up filming a lot actually, but not really thinking about making a video, certainly not a vlog, just capture some memories. But every time I look back at the footage, I feel like I'm right back there, and the idea of putting this video together has been on my mind ever since. So I decided to finally do it, and here's a recap of our incredible trip to the city that never sleeps. I hope you enjoy it. When we planned this trip, we decided to pack a lot of the touristy things into the first few days, so we kind of booked our stays with this in mind. 3 nights at an Airbnb in the Upper East Side, then 4 nights at a hotel in Midtown, and then we moved to a second Airbnb in Greenpoint for the remaining of our stay. Since we love walking, we set up to explore the city on foot as much as possible, and of course indulging in all the amazing food New York City has to offer. One of our first stops was the most touristy of all, Times Square, and it was surreal, honestly. Of course, I had a little Delulu moment. We also saw preparations for a parade on the 5th Avenue, and that turned out to be the Cultural and Heritage Parade, and it was actually really cool to stumble upon it and watch all the celebrations, so we ended up staying here quite a while. Later that day, we were ready for a drink and a snack, and we have read about a spot called Sour Mouse with a full bar, food, pool tables, ping pong and other games, and he actually had this crazy long table football setup with 3 keepers on each side instead of just one. It was such a fun way to unwind, and it definitely gave us some laughs. After that, we went to Thursday Kitchen for dinner, and by then I was totally wiped out from all the walking and the jet lag. You can probably tell that from my face here. But the food was incredible, even if I didn't film any of it. I really recommend this place. Navigating the subway was a little tricky at first, but it got easy after a few times, especially since we're used to London's busy tube system. Before our trip, I remember reading and watching so many warnings about taking the subway, but honestly we didn't have any issues. We even had a moment when a homeless gentleman saw us looking a little bit lost, and he kindly offered some directions, and he wouldn't even accept any money for his help. We were also pretty lucky with the weather. Back in the UK, I remember it was still quite cold, but in New York, when the sun was out, it was actually quite warm. Chinatown was amazing. It's so much larger than London's, which in reality is just a single street. New York's Chinatown stretches across different blocks, multiple blocks, filled with markets, restaurants, and it's just overall such a lively atmosphere. We had some food, we checked a few markets, I got a few teas of course. even spent some time in Columbus Park, where we saw locals gathering around playing music, playing different games. It was such a cool glimpse into the community's everyday life. Seeing the 9/11 memorial in person was a deeply moving experience. I'd seen photos before, but nothing really prepares you for the scale and impact of it. It was both a beautiful and haunting moment. One of the biggest highlights of our trip was this observation deck. We'd read a lot about New York's observation decks and we decided to just go with one. The Summit One Vanderbilt has 3 levels of panoramic views and has a whole immersive experience. The blend of art installations, mirrored rooms, and the sweeping city views at Summit made it absolutely worth the visit. We went to Flipper's Roller Boogie Palace at Rockefeller Center one night, and this is a seasonal outdoor wing that opened in April 2022. Kind of brings back the spirit of the original Flippers from LA in the late 70s. And I'm not gonna lie, roller skating here was a little intimidating at first with so many people around. I definitely felt a little pressure, and I also didn't travel with my skates due to space, so I had to rent a pair here, which always takes me a little bit of time to adjust. But once I got into it, I had a blast, honestly. The experience definitely became a core memory, and I would really love to go back one day now that I'm a bit more confident on wheels. Central Park was just as dreamy as I imagined. It's one of those places that feels like a movie set, probably due to the fact that it has been featured in so many movies and so many TV shows throughout the years. We spent hours here across multiple days, just walking around, soaking up the perfect weather, enjoying the stunning views and overall, the nature and the wildlife. And I think I read somewhere that turtles are actually the most common inhabitant of the waters of Central Park, and most of them used to be pets. And because the weather was so good, we also had a chance to grab some food and just eat at the park, spend some time relaxing and laying down in the grass. Although I don't really have footage of that, but if this is something that you can do, I really recommend it. I don't have tons of footage of the places we ate, but let me tell you, these were hands down the best tacos I've ever had, and reasonably priced too. We came here multiple times. And these cookies were also amazing. If you're visiting, make sure you go there, but you can probably share one cookie with someone else because they were huge. The Highline was another favorite spot of ours. It's this amazing elevated park built on an old rail line, running through the city with incredible views, art and greenery. We saw Gaten Matarazzo from Stranger Things walk by us. I didn't have the courage to say hello though, he looked so relaxed so I didn't want to bother him.
Yeah, you better.
Brooklyn ended up being my absolute favorite part of the trip. On our 5th day, we checked out of our hotel in West Midtown and checked into our Airbnb in Greenpoint. And this was where we spent the rest of our stay. Initially, we were only staying for 9 nights in total, but then we noticed that it was Memorial Day on Monday and we ended up extending our stay, but more on that later.
Yeah, you better.
One of the museums that we visited was the New York Transit Museum. I tried to keep most of these in chronological order, but this bit didn't quite fit anywhere else, so we'll just go with it. Fun fact, the museum is actually located in a decommissioned subway station in Brooklyn. It kind of dives into the history of New York City public transport, from vintage subway cars that you can step inside to exhibits on how the city transit was built and evolved over the years. Super interesting, and I think you'll like it, especially if you're a fan of New York's history or transportation in general. We also went to Pier 2, which has a gorgeous view of the Brooklyn Bridge and the East River.
Yeah, you better.
It has basketball courts, picnic areas. It's definitely a great spot to visit. When I saw they had a roller rink, I kind of went online and saw that they were doing some classes, so I decided to join a class there. Sadly, I don't really have footage of this aside from these 2 clips from my Instagram, but it was such a fun experience. One of our favorite local spots recommended by our Airbnb host was Pete's Candy Store. The vibe here was amazing, great live music, good drinks, and overall just a cozy, intimate setting. Wrapping up the trip in Brooklyn felt like the perfect balance. As much as I loved exploring Manhattan's energy in the beginning, having the last few days in Brooklyn kind of let us wind down and experience some more local side of the city. And I'm not gonna lie, by the end of all the walking, my lower back was kind of complaining I should have stretched a bit more, but honestly, Brooklyn was worth it. We didn't film much of the places where we ate, but I added most of these to our Wanderlog, so I'm gonna add this into the description as well. But overall, New York was one of the best places we've ever eaten and where we spent a large chunk of our budget as well. I connected with a few local skaters before our trip, and Tomas, a volunteer with the Central Park Dance Skaters Association, told me about an event to celebrate the reopening of the Skaters Circle, which had just been repaved, and everyone was so welcoming, so this was such a great timing. I was so happy to go. Some of the other skaters even gave me tips on footwork, some helped me adjust my wheels in my trucks, especially because these were new roller skates that I actually got over there, so that I could join the event. And of course I also made the most out of them by squeezing in a few early morning sessions. But yeah, this made such a huge difference, and it actually helped me get into the groove as well. This was one of the biggest highlights of my trip. The energy was just incredible, you know, everyone was so supportive, so passionate about skating. To be honest, this is always what I experience when I visit iconic, let's put it that way, skating spots. But this day was really amazing. It was just beautiful to see people from, you know, all ages, all backgrounds, just coming together to share this love for skating. And I left with so many amazing memories from that day. Our Airbnb host invited us to an American-Korean barbecue in celebration of Memorial Day, which was so nice of him. He had this cozy rooftop space where we got to enjoy the sunny weather, good food and good company. And that's it. This wraps up our amazing 9-11 day stays in New York. We kind of got to experience such a perfect mix of the big city energy and the neighborhood charm, so a little bit of everything, and meeting some great people along the way made this trip even more special. Have you ever been to New York? I'd love to hear more about which neighborhoods you stayed in, and if you haven't, what are you most excited to see someday? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, to comment, consider subscribing. All of these help my channel to grow. And who knows, maybe someday I'll be filming as a New York local myself. Until next time, take care.